Hey guys, Charlie Murphy here, playing another session of 126 Max No Limit on Ignition, regular tables. Our games are up and running, so let's jump right in. Lower right-hand table, we raised pocket 10s first in from the cutoff, got called by the button, small and big blinds, so we're going to check range out of position on the King 5 deuce board. Upper left-hand table, it's a limp pot, checked through on the flop. Turn, we made trips with our second pair. We're going to go ahead and call the half pot turn bet. On the turn, lower right-hand table, the top pair pairs up, so we have 10s only losing to the kings. We're going to go ahead and put a small bet out there, multi-way, try to thin the field, take the pot down, charge flush draws, charge smaller pairs. And we're going to go ahead and put a small value bet in this multi-way limp pot on the river up here on the upper left-hand table. Easily get called by the ace. And we'll check back the 10s here with that flush closing river with the trips out there as well. We beat pocket 7s. Got called by King 3 of diamonds. That guy's been limping, so we can go ahead and tag him as a recreational player. Too early to tell who else is a rec thus far, with the exception of guys open limping. That's usually a dead giveaway. Upper right-hand table, a short stack limps the button. Not going to get involved with the small blind isolation raising him, but we are going to keep a note on this guy that he's almost certainly a recreational player based on what we've seen there. Yeah, open limps. This guy's been isolating a couple of times. We'll keep an eye and see if he's maybe doing that too loose. Too early to tell that so far. But I'm comfortable tagging both of these limpers as recreational players already. And so we have a limp, and then a couple of limps, and then the small blind just jams. I think we can call you a fish. You're playing 70 blinds deep and limping behind. You're almost certainly a recreational player as well, more so based on the stack size than just the limp behind itself. And this guy, plus another limp there, so I'm convinced he's a rec. And this guy using that sizing, not convinced he's anything but a recreational player as well, just to open jam over a couple of limps. Early on, but the games look promising at the moment. Upper left-hand table, a 2.5x open from the button. We were going to defend our small blind, or our big blind had the small blind folded against the 3-bet. We, of course, just fold 6-3 suited, and we'll play a 4-bet or fold range against the raise and re-raise. Can probably stack off as loose as pocket tens and ace-king there, given the loose formation. Button raise first in, small blind 3-bet. Certainly at least jacks are better plus ace-king, but I think I would probably cold 4-bet and call off with my tens as well. Blind on blind, upper left-hand table, 10-8 suited is a standard open. Although against the 3-bet, we can go ahead and fold that out of position. Upper right-hand table, we'll open deuces from the cutoff. Couple of wrecks in the blinds. I'd much rather play the small blind who's deep than the big blind who's shallow, just for the implied odds of hitting our set. But we do want to open the deuces anyway. And he re-raises me small. Given that I'm getting almost 3-1 on the call pre-flop, and there's still plenty of money behind him, I can go ahead and call this small 3-bet even with the hand that's kind of marginal like pocket deuces. And we do hit our gin flop, which is a good spot to be in. He bets half pot. Go ahead and call. Lower left-hand table, we open queen 9 suited on the button. I think I want to start betting geometric pot here, just to sort of make my turn and river sizes to get him all in roughly equivalent. 16. Yeah, we'll go about 16. Against the overbet donk bet on the flop on the lower left-hand table, we'll just go ahead and fold. Maybe should have been slightly larger on the flop, but not the end of the world. Easy call down with the set. He finds a way to get there with king-queen offsuit. Well played, I suppose. And yeah, I should have probably bet the turn slightly larger, but we're only talking a couple of blinds difference, maybe something more like 18 as opposed to 16. Very, very, very marginal. Not even enough to qualify that as a mistake in any meaningful sense. The way I played it, he just check called a gut shot and got there, which that's okay. We want to play against that guy. Lower left-hand table, we're effectively on the button, so we go ahead and raise first in with our queen-jack offsuit. Upper left-hand table, we'll raise first in, middle position. Table's starting to show its nature to ourselves up here. We get a couple of orbits in. This player's a recreational player, but that's probably about it. 5 deuce deuce rainbow flop. We'll go ahead and range bet small against the big blind defender. Now, 9 on the turn. Pocket threes is too weak to go ahead and continue barreling for value, but it does make a pretty decent bluff catcher, especially on this kind of low disconnected raggy board. I'm going to go ahead and check this back. For value, I would be using overbet range. And value, I'd overbet, my ace deuce suited, my overpairs, ace 9, king 9, maybe queen 9, cut off probably right around there. I think I would probably trap quads and nines full. I think I would overbet my fives full. We'll check back the threes. Bad card on that his ace high floats got there. He checks. I'm going to go ahead and try to check back myself. And he got there with his ace-high float, which is reasonably played by him. Maybe he should have led the river for value, but I don't have any problem with him outdrawing me there. I think his hand was played fine. Lower right-hand table. This player, the 4 seat's a wreck. The 3 seat looks like a wreck as well, playing short stacked. Lower left-hand table. That's that guy that shoved. Maybe he's a wreck, maybe not. This guy is certainly a wreck. We know that much based on he was playing short. He's been limping. He's limped 100% of opportunities so far. He did that weird wonky overbet donk raise in a multi-way pot on, I think it was a 7-high flop. This guy's the real spot at the table right here. And we'll keep an eye on this guy to see if he does anything else silly. Upper left-hand table, button makes a 2.5x open. King 7 offsuit just outside a standard defense range there. Go ahead and fold it. Pretty close. I'm probably calling King 8 or better, folding King 7 or worse. Upper left-hand table, we're going to raise blind on blind with Jack 9 offsuit. Lower left-hand table, facing a 3x open blind on blind. We'd 3-bet some raggy offsuit aces, but I think I'll call this one and probably 3-bet ace 3, ace deuce. Upper right-hand table, recreational player opens to 5x under the gun. We're going to treat this almost like a cold 4-bet or, a cold 4-bet or fold type spot, just because the sizings are going to be so large. I am, of course, going to 3-bet and get ace-king in here pre-flop if given the opportunity. Probably queens plus ace-king, given these under the gun and using a larger size. With a decent bit of bluffs mixed in there, too, at least 50-50, maybe even a 60-40 ratio of bluffs to value. We get quickly called. We get a 10-7 deuce rainbow flop. He checks to me. I'm going to go ahead and put in a small range bet. Get check raised to 30. I think I can go ahead and fold this. Here I'm going to have, I've got pocket 10s pre-flop. I've got all the overpairs. And probably hands like ace 10, king 10 suited. Probably don't need to really float too much wider than that. I could maybe float a couple of the backdoor flush draw combos as well if I just am worried about folding too much. Probably not a big concern against a fish who's not going to be putting enough of the proper moves on me right there or folding enough when we get involved in a pot that's too bloated. But ace king offsuit with, or ace king with no backdoors rather is a more important way to look at that. We can just go ahead and fold in this spot. Unless I've got some reason to think he's just doing that way too wide, in which case I can jam over the top of him, but I don't believe that to be the case necessarily here. $5x open from another recreational under the gun player. We just fold the pocket threes. From what I've seen over large samples of data, fish and 3-bet pots, they do tend to raise the flop bets too often, but they don't fold when you 3-bet over their raise nearly often enough. So you don't want to necessarily be 3-bet bluffing fish over their raise and 3-bet pots, but you want to be expanding your value range to get that money in. A lot of times what they're doing is they're going to go ahead and raise marginal pairs that maybe shouldn't be raised, then call them off because they've got too much money involved. That seems to be the way these guys think and play for the most part, and the data seems to back that up. So when you're getting raised in 3-bet pots by the fish, don't necessarily treat them as being too wide and that they're too bluffy and that you can rebluff them off, but just start going to town with them with the value bets over the top. A hand like ace 10 or king then is just going to be a slam dunk, get it in for value against those guys right there in that spot. I would trap aces against the check raise. I would trap the set of 10s. And then the hands like queens, jacks, kings, queens, and jacks are a bit closer because they're a bit more vulnerable. Jacks I probably reship, queens as well. Kings I think could probably go either way. Upper right-hand table, we raise first in, get called in position on the cutoff, and then also by the big blind. We'll check range with the player in position to us, multi-way in a single raise pot. It checks through. We get the jack of spades. We still have an overpair with our queens. We're going to go ahead and start stabbing at this pot small, using a small size because of the multi-way pot. Thinking our queens are most likely to be good here. Be value betting most rivers if we get called as well. This guy's a probable recreational player. He's already limped. He's calling pre-flop and not raising. He's playing short. I'm comfortable tagging him as a rec based on that as well. Upper right-hand table, we get limp 2, blind down blind. We'll isolate pretty wide, 40-some%, but 5-4 offsuit. I'll just check in and take my free flop and play a smaller pot with that hand. Now when he checks to me again, I'm just going to go ahead and stab at it for a min bet. And probably get away with it far more often than I should. I've got a short stack using large bet sizing, playing 80-27 with a lot of limps. I'm comfortable tagging him as a rec. Player that's 20% limps, 1 limp out of 5 over 16 hands. Given that he's also short, I'm comfortable, or no, he's not short rather, but I'm going to go ahead and tag him at least provisionally as a recreational player. And we got a new player jumping in 40 blinds deep. He's probably also weak. So overall, the games look pretty good. I got to make my hands hold up, of course, but I like the fact that we're playing in games where there should be some profit to be made. Upper left-hand table, we open queen 8 of diamonds. I think I probably made a mistake. I shouldn't have really opened that pre-flop in middle position, but it's not too terribly loose, just on the cusp of what I should have opened. I think I thought I was in the cutoff and wasn't paying close enough attention. That's what I'm going to go ahead and range bet on that king 4-4 two-tone board. We get check raised, a pretty decent size. We get check raised by a recreational player who's probably not aggressive enough, and he also uses a bit larger size as opposed to a real small size. I wouldn't be continuing real wide here based on those factors, but given that I've got the second nut flush draw and I'm getting better than 2-1 on my call, I'm going to go ahead and call it and reevaluate based on the cards that peel off. Lower right-hand table, cutoff opens 2.5x. We're sitting on the button with pocket sevens. He's been pretty tight so far. This is kind of close. It's actually kind of on the cusp of 3-bet pre-flop against that size, even if I think he's using the appropriate frequencies, of which here I'm not so sure of. So I'm going to go ahead and fold that. Gets the half pot bet on the turn. I'm going to continue with my flush draw. And then let's see, over here we got a recreational player, then a caller on the button, the 2.5x open from under the gun. It's pretty close. I think I'm just going to go ahead and squeeze this up. Against a heads-up guy, against a player that was more of a reg, I think I might just flat it. But I think I'm going to squeeze, given that he's a fish. He may be a bit too wide. He's been too aggressive, and there's extra dead money out there from the caller. You could also call it, though, and I don't mind it. Against the triple barrel here, or the check raise on the barrel off, where we don't improve. We've got queen high. Just going to go ahead and fold. I would probably bluff it on the ace had he checked at me to fold him off of a king. But that's not what we're dealing with. The under the gun player folds out, but the button player that called the raise pre-flop also calls the 3-bet. We get a queen-queen 4 two-tone board. I'm going to go ahead and range bet small. It's a pretty decent flop for the tens. I think he's probably got a lot of mid pairs in his range that we're calling, trying to hit a set, of which only pocket 4s got there. We beat stuff like pocket 7s, 8s, 6s, 9s. Although I do think those would float for the small bet on a paired board like that. Curious what this guy's doing. He's probably kind of fishy, actually. He's played 24-0, so he's V-pipped 4 times without raising. I want to see how many of those were outside of the big blind. Twice in the big blind, once in the small blind, once in the button. Potential recreational player, but nothing I'm too comfortable with yet. Let's keep an eye on him and see what he does. At lower left-hand table, blind on blind, we open 10-9 offsuit. We get called by that recreational player, and we check range to him on the ace 8-6 two-tone board. think this hand is probably a check raise. Is it with the gut shot to the nuts? We also have that flushed blocker with the 10 of hearts in our hand. I think I'll check raise this one if he stabs for anything half pot or below. Larger bet size is a little bit dicier, although probably still okay to check raise. He checks back, so now we're going to go ahead and start stabbing at that pot small, planning to follow through on the river as a bluff if we miss, or for value if we happen to hit the gut shot. If I make the nuts, if I make an offsuit 7, I'm going to go ahead and overbet. If it's the 7 of hearts, I'll probably bet smaller. And as the bluff, I'm going to use the more smaller standard size bet as well. See if I can fold him off. An ace is not going to fold, but other hands will fold, very likely. Not all the time, but plenty of the time. Another suspected wreck, playing 26.5 blinds deep. We'll check range here in this multi-way limp pot, the lower right-hand table. With all these guys out here. Everyone checks through. We're going to go ahead and stab at it with our third pair. We've got the heart and try to thin the field down a little bit. It's a little bit dicier with 4 guys out there and with the ace, but I still would rather do this than check, call it. And that small bet is still a pretty cheap price on the bluff. I think I'm just going to actually try to show this down. Well, it's 4th pair. He's not going to fold the ace. He's obviously not going to fold the flush. Even folding the 10 is pretty dicey. If I was weaker, I would still bluff this. I'm just going to hope he had like a naked king of hearts that lets me show down. Nah, he had 2 pair. That was never going to get him off of that either. I would bluff if I had less showdown value. If I just had absolutely nothing. A high card draw that whiffed out. Given that I beat those high cards, I don't think I'm getting him to fold too many of the stuff that actually beats me. I think it's okay to check that one down, even though I don't think it's going to win all that often. It's that guy we think might be a wreck. I'm going to give him a yellow tag for a moment to remind me he's a suspected wreck and keep an eye on him for any other shenanigans. Recreational player limps middle position. We'll go ahead and isolate our jacks against him. Isolate something like our middle position open range, about a 21% range. Other recreational player calls out of the small blind. We get squeezed all in for 14 blinds by the big blind. The initial rec-lit limp that was deeper, he folds out. Nothing really to do here except jam over the top and get in this pot with the shorter stack guy or force the other rec to call off his other 31 blinds. And we've got the jacks. This is a good situation for us. Pretty happy with it. Up against ace-queen, so here we're racing effectively. And we lost the race, but I think that hand is finely played. Lower left-hand table, we'll raise the ace-6 suited under the gun. Recreational player 3-bets a small from the big blind. I'm not quite sure how tight or loose we're supposed to defend against a 3-bet that small. It's more of a 3x than even a 3.5x. It's probably pretty close. I'm going to go ahead and fold it out. I don't hate a call, though, if you go the other way on that. I just tend to be a little on the conservative side against 3-bets because the pool tends to be so nitty. And that's that guy where I only tagged him as a fish because he did that weird wacky jam over the limps kind of thing. And that might have just been a guy looking to get paid. I see that move sometimes, especially when they're fresh at a table where they just completely overbet, or jam a real strong hand like aces pre-flop, hoping it looks like a random fish spaz trying to get called off. I just saw that in my hand histories a couple days ago, and it was a guy, first hand at the table in the big blind, jams over my button open with pocket aces. I didn't call him down, but when I checked the hand histories later on, it showed exactly what he was up to. So just because a guy jams a hand once doesn't automatically tell me that he's a silly fish. He may be trying to look like a silly fish, trying to get paid off with a big hand against something that calls down a bit marginally. Lower right-hand table, we had a limper under the gun, so we complete our small blind with 7-5 suited. Now we're going to check our range in the 10-4-4 rainbow flop. Got some decent backdoors here, backdoor straight draws, backdoor flush draws. No need to really get involved, but check raise bluffing against a short stack fish here. But, if it was a situation where we were heads up or the stacks were deeper, there may be some merit to making a play with a hand like this. Here, given I've got no play in the stacks behind me, there's no reason to start getting creative. I'll just go ahead and fold it. Upper left-hand table, blind on blind. We face a 3x open. I will repop some junky, janky offsuit hands that aren't quite good enough to call. This one's probably just outside of my range for either calling or even 3-betting, so I'm going to fold it. But I think it's pretty close. If you're a bit looser, blind on blind, playing back at these guys, that might be a hand you want to 3-bet with. Lower right-hand table, we open ace-king suited on the button, get a queen 8-5 rainbow flop. We're going to go ahead and range bet small against the recreational player in the big blind. He calls us. 5 of diamonds is the turn. I see no reason to try to bluff him off any pair at this point. I'd like to check back, get my ace high towards showdown, or peel an overcard that I can bet for value or bluff catch, such as the king of spades. He checks to me. I'm going to go ahead and put in my bet. And he instantly folds. He probably had some kind of straight draw as opposed to even second pair. I think second pair at least gives it some thought. The queen I don't think ever folds. Lower right-hand table, or lower left-hand table rather, we're going to open 8-10 suited from middle position. In the upper right-hand table, we'll open king 10 from the cutoff. Both are standard opens. We get 3-bet in position, so we're just going to go ahead and fold that. Even though the guy's aggressive, there's no reason to get involved out of position with a hand as weak as 10-8 suited. We do have this guy overcalling, cold calling the 3-bet. Our fishy recreational player buddy, he min raises us back. He's the guy that did that to us with the king-jack offsuit and backdoored himself into that Broadway straight against our set. We're going to go ahead and call this because the price is just so good. King 10 is not normally the kind of hand we call 3-bets with, but against a fishy player and against a price that good, you really can't justify folding. I'm not going to stab the flop with second pair and the backdoor nut flush draw. Just check back and get this thing moving towards showdown. Lower right-hand table, we opened King 8 suited from middle position, got called by a rec on the button on a ace, ace, king, rainbow flop. We're going to go ahead and start stabbing at the turn. He bets small on the turn, the upper right-hand table. We're going to go ahead and call with our second pair top kicker. Now we made a 2-pair, King 10. He checks to us, nothing to do but go ahead and value bet this. Hope to get called by a hand like Ace 7, some kind of 1-pair hand that we're ahead of. Definitely a lot of stuff that can call us that we can get value from. Upper left-hand table, we're going to raise 10-9 suited from middle position. And the recreational player that we were targeting left that table a couple hands ago, so we're going to go ahead and bow out on this one. His replacement's probably a fish too, playing shallow, cold calling 3-bets, but he's only got 30 blinds. Actually, this guy, another new guy, he looks like a wreck as well. We got direct position on him. So I'm going to stick around. I was going to shuffle the table out and look for a better one, but with 2 almost certain recreational players in there, even though they're a bit on the shorter side, I think it's worth sticking around. Check range in the lower right-hand table in this limp pot. We're another big blind with ace-deuce offsuit. And we're just going to go ahead and fold so that half-ish pot bet into the multi-way field. It can be real tight against even smaller bet sizes in multi-way pots because the other players have an obligation to help you defend against the bet. Upper left-hand table, we're going to open king-jack offsuit under the gun. Once again, that's a very standard open. Got some limps from some recreational players in the lower right-hand table. We're going to go ahead and complete our small blind with ace-4 offsuit. Looking for a 2-pair straight type hand more than anything else to really put a lot of money in. Against the 3-bet in the upper left-hand table from the blind, when we open under the gun, we're just going to fold king-jack offsuit. No reason to do anything else. Multi-way pot. We're going to go ahead and stab at it small after everyone checks around. Lower left-hand table, we're going to open the pocket 10s on the button. Now we got the Queen of Hearts peels off. We have the nut flush blocker. I think we actually might want to use this as an overbet here. Overbet bluff because we blocked the flushes. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, especially it's one of the worst aces. Ace deuce, ace 4, maybe ace 5 might be the kind of hands I would overbet bluff with here with the heart blocker. You know, I can have quad 3s, I can have 6s, I can have some various full house combos like 3-6. I can have various flushes, strong flushes. Under the gun makes a large 5x open. Although with 9-6 offsuit, we obviously just fold. Blind on blind, lower left-hand table, ace-queen suited is a standard 3-bet. and we take it down. Lower left-hand table, we got Jack 5 suited. That's towards the bottom of our open range, but still a reasonable hand to open on the button. This table's not all that good anymore. Even this guy who's kind of fishy. He's only limped once. He's got a decent VPIP gap, but he seems pretty aggressive. I suspect there's softer games out there right now than that, just seeing the way my other tables have been shaping up so far. So I'm going to shuffle this one out. Got one guy playing shorter. I think it's worth sticking around to see how he shows himself to be. Against that min raise, I normally don't really cold call against a limper in an isolation, even from the big blind, because I'm not closing the action. Given it was a min raise, and these limpers probably not too likely to really have limp squeeze type hands in his range very much, I would call there with some hands. Not a hand like A7 offsuit, but some hands that play really well multi-way with, draws to nut or near nut type hands. Knowing I will ever so often, not very frequently, ever so often get repop squeezed by that limper and have to fold my hand out, get limp re-raised, but I don't think it's going to happen too much, so I can sneak in quite a bit of the time as long as I've got the right kind of hand, but A7 offsuit is just not the right kind of hand. The table, I thought I had a guy playing short, but I guess I don't. I'm going to shuffle that one out, find another one. There's a guy playing short and either limping or posting, so that's a good sign. We'll keep this one around. Under the gun, recreational player limps will isolate with 10-8 suited in the cutoff. That's right around the bottom of our isolation range in this spot, but still reasonable to do. We tried that last go around, and here's exactly what happened, except that guy squeezed over the top with ace-queen and won the race against us. But still, we're going to keep playing our game, even though it didn't work the last time. Upper right-hand table, we're going to go ahead and raise the pocket threes under the gun. Little on the loose side, but I like to have these pocket pairs in range, especially when I've got weak players out there I can make sets against and win big money. We've got a gut shot here, but I don't really want to get check raised off it by the short stacks. If I had deeper guys in there, I think I would bet this. Here, I'm just going to go ahead and check it back. I can start stabbing the turn against a second check if need be. Yeah, they check twice. I'm going to go ahead and put in that small bet multi-way. Fold into the in-position 3-bet with the pocket threes. There, and I was going to try to bluff off, but we actually just made top pair. I think I need to try to value bet this. I don't want to overbet him all in for, he's got 31.5 blinds and a little over 22 pot. I think I want to use a smaller bet. Getting check raise suck, but he's really never going to check raise bluff me without a flush or a trip fives, a straight, something like that. So put the small bet in, get paid off. It can exploitively fold to the check raise, even though it's a very small amount. He snap called me. And he had a 6. He had 3-6 offsuit. So you don't want to pass on these value bet spots in the river, even though they seem kind of thin, because you only have to win half the time when you're called to justify them. And, getting that extra bet in on the river against a player that, is where a lot of your win rate's going to come from against a player, especially against a player who's going to play a hand like 3-6 offsuit and call down a couple of streets with it. Raise queen jack offsuit middle position. Going to go ahead and check range multi-way with the player in position to me. We do have a gut shot. He's so short though we can just go ahead and check fold against his smallish bet on the flop. Against the deeper player where there's some reward if we can get in there and peel our 10 for the nuts, it's worth coming along. But against a guy who's only got a handful of blinds left behind him, it just doesn't justify the call. Upper right-hand table, the under the gun player opens to 2.5x. We're in the cutoff with pocket jacks. We're at a 3-bet and 8 to 9% range here, which of course will include pocket jacks and fold everything else. I'm probably got a range something like 9s plus, ace-queen plus, king-queen, ace-10 and king-10 suited or better, queen-jack suited, and a couple of suited wheel aces like ace-5 and ace-4. Gets me to about 8.5%. I'm going to use a range like that. Recreational player. Cold calls the 3-bet from the big blind. I'm okay with that. However, once we get 4-bet, I don't feel so good about the jacks anymore. He should probably have less 4-bet bluffs than his range, given that he has to 4-bet larger because of the extra money out there and because this guy in there could also have some hands that just won't fold. Pocket jacks are already a little bit marginal when they were 4-bet by an under-the-gun player. Given that I think this guy's range is, or at least absolutely should be, a bit tighter than typical, I'm going to go ahead and fold this. I'm probably just jamming queens plus ace-king and folding everything else at that point. I think that's a reasonable way to approach this situation. I don't even want to have cold calls here. I guess you, in theory, could think about calling a hand like queens, but I think I'd rather just jam them at that point with all that extra dead money out there. 9-3 suited is a bit marginal, but okay to defend blind on blind for a 3x open. Towards the bottom of our range, but we're going to be defending most, if not all, suited combos in position blind on blind. Maybe fold a couple like 8 deuce, 7 deuce. We get check 2 on the 9-8-8 flop, so we're going to go ahead and stab for half pot in position. We've got top pair weak kicker. Bet like this can fold out lots of 1 to 2 overcard type hands that have some equity that don't want to put any money in. I could have some draws and stuff like that too. Now let me see here. I think I would have an overbet range because I can have all kinds of trip 8s here. And quad 8s. I think I would probably flat 8s pre-flop at 3-bet 9s. I could have some combos of 8-9 also for full houses. I'm going to be using the overbet size and not a smaller size. If I was using smaller sizes, I would probably bet my top pair, Given that I'm going to be playing overbet or check, I'm going to put this into the check range and bluff catch a lot of rivers. If you do want to use a smaller size there, this is a reasonable hand to bet small, or you could also use multiple sizes, put some hands into your overbet and a hand like this into your smaller bet size. I'm just going to check down now and not try to get called down. Against more of a blank type card, you know, he could check call a lot of ace-x hands, which I don't want to value cut myself with. He had pocket tens, which I think was played okay. A bit on the passive side, but okay. I don't know that I would have played it too much differently from him, all things considered. So I think his play is reasonable. I think our play is reasonable as well. We'll shuffle this table out now. The only obvious rec left is sitting out. We'll open fives on the button. I suspect that a rec is playing 86-0 at 75% lips through his first orbit or so. This other player here may be a rec as well. Too early to say for sure, but we'll keep an eye on that. If so, we've got a great seed having direct position on the two recs. Upper left-hand table, our button open faces a 3.5x small blind 3-bet. We can defend a lot against the wide small blind 3-betting range in the button B small blind formation and against that small size. So we're going to go ahead and continue with our pocket fives. Pretty much any pocket pair here. Most suited connectors are suited aces. Decent flop for the fives. He checks to us. We're going to go ahead and stab at the pot, half pot. Protect from overcards, get some value from ace-high type stuff that wants to check call. We don't really pick up any equity on that turn card, so I'm going to go ahead and check it back. Queen is not a great card because he could have some ace-queen in his flop checking range. He instantly bets 2/3. Trying to think if this is a spot where I should be calling down or not. Lower left-hand table will range bet on the Jack-3 deuce board. This might actually be a call. A little bit over bluffed based on the sizing, based on the formation, based on the line he took, the check call, check bet, the Broadway River overcard. Everything seems to be pointing towards over bluffed. He could have a hand like ace queen here, but I'm still going to go ahead and look it up just based on the pot odds. Yeah, he does have ace queen, but I think our play is reasonable. I think I would like it better if he just goes ahead and bets the flop. But sometimes they're going to have better hands. It's just the way it goes. Would also like it if that bet was a bit smaller, but I still think it's okay to call. If he goes and starts betting for pot or overbet, I think I can find a fold. But for that size, and I think it's okay. Upper right-hand table, we're going to open Jack-5 suited on the button. And then blind on blind, the lower right-hand table, 8-7 offsuit, pretty close, probably just outside my open range. I'm going to go ahead and fold it, but I don't hit a raise first in either. Upper left-hand table, we're going to open ace-king offsuit from middle position. Upper right-hand table, we're going to open pocket kings from middle position. We get 3-bet in position in the upper left-hand table after our middle position open. And then the lower right-hand table, we're going to go ahead and 3-bet the middle position open with our king 10 suited. Upper right-hand table, we'll range bet on the queen 4 deuce rainbow flop. And in this spot on the upper left-hand table, we're going to be 4-betting to call off either queens plus ace-king or maybe include jacks in there, depending on how loose we think this guy is. Against a player pool, probably just queens plus. This guy's been aggressive over a couple of hands, but he's only played 3 hands so far. I think we'll just, either way, we're going to do this with the ace-king for sure. I'm just trying to decide what my actual range would be. I think I'll use queens plus ace-king and maybe ace-queen offsuit as my bluff. And then we get 4-bet over here by the middle position open. I think we can just go ahead and fold the king 10 suited. It's a larger bet size in a multi-way pot. We've got a vulnerable top pair. Could easily be behind big hands, like, overpairs, better nines or sets. But he's also been pretty aggressive, could be stabbing, and even though he shouldn't be using the size that large, it doesn't mean he's not. We do also have backdoor flush draws. I think just calling here is clearly the right move. No reason to go ahead and check fold. I might be more inclined without a backdoor draw in my hand there because of the larger size, but that may be a bit too nitty. However, when he keeps barreling and barreling for pot, I think it's going to be okay to go ahead and fold this, especially having not picked up my backdoor draw. Upper right-hand table, got a 3x open from the cutoff. We've got queen jack offsuit in the big blind. This is towards the bottom of a defense range in the big blind against a cutoff 3x open. This player's been on the tight side, but not through that many hands. I think it's a bit too early to start deviating and assuming he's a bit of a nit. So I'm going to go ahead and make a standard defense here. It is pretty close, though, like I said, on the cusp, and he may be a bit on the tight side, so I don't hate folding. We've got overcards and the 3 cards to a straight. I'm going to go ahead and float this little tiny bet, like about a 30% bet that he puts in. And against the double barrel, I'll go ahead and fold, having not picked up any kind of showdown value or equity of any kind. Would probably, almost certainly would have bluffed the river on improved if it checked through. I would probably value bet my overcard if I made a pair as well. We'll limp in against the recreational limper and the small blind with ace-4 suited. Checks all around, so we're going to go ahead and start stabbing at this pot, this little 10-high flop. Upper right-hand table will complete the small blind against the cutoff limper recreational player. I got a flush closing river, completes some straights too, 6, 7, 9, 10. There's 4 to the straight. On these 4 straight or 4 flush runouts, I like to use the pot size bet. Going to go ahead and bluff as I've got no showdown value. Lower left-hand table, button raises first in. We're going to go ahead and 3-bet very aggressively, something like a 15% range, including our pocket kings, of course. Probably 5s plus, ace-jack plus, king-queen plus, any suited ace, any suited 9, 9-8 suited, something like that to get me up around 15%. Upper left-hand table will raise first in with the jack-5 suited. We're going to put in a small block bet on the multi-way river with our second pair in the upper right-hand table. We're going to make a small range bet in the lower left-hand table with our pocket kings. Lower right-hand table, we're going to call the min 3-bet with our pocket 6s and check range on the flop. Going to go ahead and fold the jack-5 against the donk bet from the recreational player on the upper left-hand table. We have a flush completing or a flush closing turn where we don't actually have the flush card. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to bet this small or check it. I think I'm going to go ahead and put in a small bet against this guy. And now I just want to check and try to show down against some kind of queen or some kind of pocket pair. I don't think he's going to turn a lot of hands into bluffs, so I block some of the straight draws. His flush draws on the flop got there, so we'd have to have a backdoor flush draw he floated with twice, and then he bets. He bets so small, I've got no choice but to call that down. He might be just trying to get value from the jack. I'm just going to go ahead and call that with the king. It's just way too good a price to be folding. He really should have bet more, even though I think I could have got away with it. He really should have tried to get more value out of this flush. Not sure if I played that one correctly. I'm really not sure of the turn action there. It's possible I made a mistake. It's possible that's supposed to be a check or a different size. I'm really not sure. I need to look at that one. Lower left-hand table, we open ace-9 suited on the cutoff. Lower right-hand table, we open ace-6 offsuit on the button. These are all pretty standard plays. Got a 2.5x open from middle position, along with the small blind coming along to call. I think we can go ahead and call this just because it makes some, especially the straight hands being more lock-type hands. The flush is a little less enticing multi-way, but the possibility of making a strong straight that really can't be beat is really why I'm in there primarily. Check fold there against some bets, a bet in the call on the 10-10-5 flop with no piece of it. Lower left-hand table, we open queen 10 offsuit blind on blind. Go ahead and check range on that 5-3 deuce monotone board. We do have the 10 of diamonds, so I think we can go ahead and call that small bet. Continue checking, 6-5-3-2 board. Now let's see here. I'm going to fold this. I'm just thinking about what I would play with here aggressively. I would probably use something like a pot-sized check raise with my ace high flushes and some naked ace blockers. I think is probably the play to do here. Yeah, plan on check raising for about pot, then gem on the river. The 10 of diamonds don't need to get involved and do any of that. But if I had did the ace high flush or the ace high flush draw with the ace high flush blocker, I think I would do that and put his 4x into a real bad spot. Lower left hand table, we're going to open king 8 offsuit on the button. I would probably just keep check calling with my sets, 2 pairs and straight type hands and smaller flushes. King and queen high flushes, I probably would check raise on the river then if he continued betting. Couple of guys playing shorter on this table, it appears, so I think this is a good spot to be at. Yeah, 5-2, and I think the 4 seed as well. We're all playing shorter. Lower right-hand table, we're going to raise 9s on the button. Big blind calls, ace, queen, 10, two-tone flop. We'll go ahead and put in a small range bet. Get check raised. Content to go ahead and fold this. He really shouldn't have aces, queens, or even 10s. Too much ace, queen. But he can certainly have king jack. King jack offsuit should be completely in his calling range there. He's really 3-bet king jack suited, but he can definitely have nut type combos there. I don't draw to the nuts nor block the nuts. Even if I hit a 9, I could still be behind. Easy just to go ahead and fold there. And I can certainly have every set and all combos of the straights, all combos of 2 pair. So I just don't need to float there with an underpair. Lower right-hand table, we raise jacks on the cutoff. On the upper left-hand table, we raise king jack suited from under the gun. Flop bottom 2 pair multi-way on the ace king jack two-tone flop. So we're going to go ahead and check range to the in-position player. He's short. I can definitely see myself check raising and getting in against that guy here if he bets fact, I'm pretty happy doing that, thinking a guy like this might overplay his draws or pair of aces when I've got the 2 pair. Much better than letting cards sit that can outdraw me or scare him off his worst hands. So with my call, that makes the pot 19 blinds. He's got about 24 left. I'm just going to go ahead and jam all in over the top for a slight overbet. And calls with ace-7 of diamonds, so he's pretty live, but we hold up. It's effectively a coin flip there. Upper right-hand table, we open ace-9 suited under the gun. A short stack small blind player calls us. Lower right-hand table, get a 3x open on the button. We're in the small blind. We are going to 3-bet our Jack-10 suited, 3-bet in the 14 to 15% range here, including all suited broadways. Upper right-hand table will range bet small on the ace-7-8 board. He goes ahead and calls us. Snaps pretty quick. Upper left-hand table will open Jack-9 offsuit. I think I just want to go bet and try to get the money in here with my ace. I want to use a geometric bet to get equal size on the turn and the river, equal proportions of pot on the turn and river, that is. So we'll go 7 and then jam the river, as long as it's not one we don't like. And he instantly folds. Upper left-hand table, we open ace-10 offsuit in the cutoff. You get a cutoff raise first in, a aggressive, fishy, recreational player, 3-bet small on the small blind. We're going to go ahead and play cold 4-bet or fold. I think I would be using jacks or better to stack off with against this guy. Maybe even 10. Yeah, I think I would go 10s or better here. Going to put in a bet to about 18. Trying to think what kind of bluffing ratio I want to use. Probably not too many bluffs, probably like a 40-60 bluff to value ratio. So I probably have like 10s or better, ace-queen plus, ace-10 suited plus, king-jack suited plus. I'd be calling off with 10s or better, ace-king, if I get rejammed on by this guy. Blind down blind, upper right-hand table, we open the 10-7 of hearts. Upper left-hand table, that recreational player limps from the middle position. I'm going to go ahead and isolate raise him up with something like 8s or better, ace-10 plus, king-jack plus, any suited Broadway, any suited 9 kind of thing. I'm going to go ahead and range bet him small on the ace-5-3. If he plays back at me, I'll be done with the hand. However, he calls. Get a king of diamonds, so now we have some showdown value. We just want to go ahead and check this to him. You know, the flush draws got there, and his ace is still good if he had that all along. He bets 5 into 18. I think I've got no choice but to call this because the price is so good. And now a 10 of diamonds out there on the river. Oh, he had the 7 deuce of diamonds for the turn flush. So we're right, he's a recreational player, limp calling 7 deuce. But he did get there on us. He really should have just jammed the flop with this flush draw and realized his equity forced me off all kinds of hands like King Jack that had no business being in the hand, but we're still ahead. Upper left-hand table, we open pocket jacks in the cutoff. We get 3-bet to 3.5, like a 3x 3-bet in position. We should be 4-betting to call off jacks plus ace king, maybe even tens plus ace king against the pool. I'm going to go ahead and put in my 4-bet and plan to call off with the jacks here. He's new to the table. We don't have any particular reads on the guy other than that he seems like a reg. 3-betting in position to a standard sizing and playing 100 blinds deep. We don't know anything more about him than that. He flats the 4-bet. We get a queen, 10, 10, two-tone board. I'm going to go ahead and range bet small. I've got tens plus ace king, ace queen offsuit, and a couple of suited wheel aces like ace 5, ace 4, or some pre-flop bluffs in my range. He flats us. Let's see here. I'm trying to think I want to play my range. I probably want to be jamming my ace king. I want to be jamming my ace king, ace 5, and ace 4 of either diamonds or hearts. So I've got 6 flush draw combos. I want to trap with my quad tens. I want to trap with my queens full. I think I want to jam my kings and my ace queen. I think I can probably trap with the aces, especially if I block either of those flush draws. Aces could go either way, either jam or trap. Jacks, I want to check. Now he bets me small. I think this is supposed to be a fold here. I'm trying to think about this. Like what my trap hands, I've still got the queens full of the tens. I've got some aces. I think I would probably check jam the aces at this point. I would continue trapping with the full houses and the quads. I think I can go ahead and fold this. If he's got draws, he really should just jam them in rather than go bet small, bet small. I think he'd be more inclined to jam with the draws. So I think this is more likely a hand trying to milk me than anything else. I don't really know for sure, but I think I'm content knowing that I've got my queens and my tens and my pocket aces, at least some combos of my aces in my range there as traps that I can induce him to bet with and trap him. And I'll fold the jacks. So if I'm behind with the jacks, I'm way behind, if not drawing dead. Lower left-hand table, we'll open pocket fours on the button. Middle position, min raises. We're going to go ahead and defend this with Queen 7 suited on the big blind. Defending pretty much all our suited cards heads up against that min raise right there. Bets about 75% on the flop on the 9-7-4 rainbow. We've got second pair, backdoor flush draw. We're going to go ahead and check call that. And he goes and overbets the turn. I think I just want to fold this without having picked up the backdoor equity. Giving some merit to trying to turn it into a bluff, although I don't want to have a lot of check raises against the overbet size to begin with. Anything I trap with, I'm going to continue trapping with for the most part, so it's not really credible. My thinking is I block hands like two pairs, sets of sevens, and king queen. That said, I don't think that's enough reason to do it. I think what really controls here is against the overbet. I'm just going to go into a situation where I'm not raising very often because he should be pretty polarized there, and the more polarized he is, the less I should raise. So I'm just going to go ahead and fold that. You know, if I had a hand like Queen 4 of hearts, I think I would come along with that because I've got a ton of outs to improve on the river, and the backdoor flush draw is fairly disguised. Lower left-hand table, we open Queen Jack on the button. Big blind defends us. We get an 8-9-5 two-tone flop. We've got two overcards, a backdoor club draw with the queen, as well as the gut shot to the nuts. We're going to go ahead and bet out small to start us off. We get check called. 7 out there, so there's a 4 to the straight. This is going to be a situation where we're really going to just be overbetting with our hands like Jack 10 or the 6X. in some bluffs or checking back otherwise. I'm going to go ahead and use this hand as an overbet. I block the flush draws that might want to continue. I block Jack 10. I've got a draw to the nuts still. I think it's a good spot to go ahead and put in that bluff. I can have lots of 6x in my range on that river as well as all combos of Jack 10. I think that's a reasonable spot to use the overbet and a reasonable hand to do it with. Lower right-hand table under the gun limps. We're going to go ahead and isolate with pocket deuces. I'd rather he was deeper. I think it's a bit more marginal because he's so sharp, but I think it's also still okay. Lower right-hand table, we open ace-queen offsuit from under the gun. Lower left-hand table, the button opens for 2.5x. We're going to go ahead and 3-bet pretty aggressively from our big blind, about 14%, including all of our suited Broadway hands like Jack 10 suited. Now, on the lower right-hand table, we get 3-bet after under the gun open by the middle position player. We're going to open blind down blind, ace-10 offsuit, lower left-hand table. Normally, ace-queen suited is the kind of hand I put into my 4-bet bluff range. However, this guy, I've got him tagged as a fish. He's playing 23-12 over 79 hands. He's got some limps in his range, at least a few. He has not 3-bet in 79 hands and 39 opportunities. I'm going to view him as being so completely tight that I just do not want to get involved with trying to 4-bet bluff him with anything. I'm going to fold my 4-bet bluffs to this guy. He's been so passive, I see no reason to go ahead and find a way to bluff him because he's just not going to fold nearly often enough. He hasn't been 3-betting at all. It's his first 3-bet in 40 opportunities, and he's doing it in the tightest possible formation, under the gun versus, or middle position versus under the gun. Or he's 3-betting that, so there's no reason to 4-bet that guy. So that's a deviation based on stats and reads, whereas the standard would be to 4-bet bluff ace-queen offsuit there. But I'm very comfortable. I just saved myself a 4-bet bluff. It has almost no chance of working in that situation. Recreational player opens the button for slightly more than a min raise. Go ahead and defend with 8-6 offsuit. Pretty close because he's shallow. I'd rather it's a bit deeper so I have a chance to make a straight or a good 2-pair and try to get some money in, but I can still go ahead and defend against that for such a great price. Towards the bottom of the range, though. I will check fold against his continuation bet with no real piece of the board except a little bit of backdoor straight draw. He min raises. I don't normally defend the small blind for a call, but I don't want to 3-bet this and have to fold to a raise. I don't think this player that's been so passive is going to squeeze me out very often. I want to just go ahead and call here. This is another deviation based on table conditions. The big blind folds out. I'm playing this basically like I was defending my big blind. So I'm going to check range to him. Lower left-hand table, I'm going to go ahead and check range as well. Check call with my top pair, check to him again, lower left-hand table. After it checks through, I'm going to stab. He bets again. He bets 21. Now with flush draws, straight draws, overcards, this hand's a lot more vulnerable. Now I'm going to check raise and put them all in for about a 75% of pot raise. I'm just going to go ahead and continue betting over here with my deuce rather than check And I got called off with a pair and a flush draw, which is not a bad situation for me. Upper right-hand table, we're going to go ahead and range bet small on the King, Queen, 9 two-tone flop. Lower left-hand table, button min raises. We're going to go ahead and 3-bet pretty aggressively from our small blind, including hands like ace, queen suited. Upper right-hand table, it's going to be an overbet or check situation with how we got here with the pre-flop raise and then the small range bet on the flop. My value bets are going to be, my straights, my sets, my 2-pair, and maybe hands like King, Jack, King, 10. I don't need to do anything with a hand like eights except check it back. Lower left-hand table, range bet small on the ace, 6, 7 board. Now he calls that. That board completes a straight to some extent. I'm going to go ahead and check it and try to pick off floats or under-rep my hand to get value from worse aces on the river. Not a great river card, and that now it puts a 4 to the straight out there, so I'm just going to go ahead and check and try to check this down instead. Upper right-hand table, this is probably not a great bluff catcher. I mean, I don't beat anything on the board at all. I really only beat a hand like ace 10 that's turning itself into a bluff. Now he bets a pretty good size on the river. Is the 3-bet pot caller. The call check bet line is not particularly bluffy. The 4 straight river is kind of neutral. This is pretty close, but with that size up, I mean, you could have a hand like pocket 9s, a hand like 8-9. I don't think he's doing this with a worse ace or a worse pocket pair. I think it's going to be too hard for him to find enough bluffs here to justify this one. This one I'm going to fold. And we're going to shut our session down here at the next orbit. Upper left-hand table, we open King Jack offsuit in the cutoff, get 3-bet in position. We're just going to go ahead and fold that one out. And that's about it. This is Charlie Murphy signing off. Thank you for watching.